Welcome back to A Bevy of Bloods for round 19 of the 2023 season. Stevo joins me as we get stuck into the solid win against the Dockers to keep our finals hopes alive. So fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods.
Swans!
G'day there, Cygnets and Swanlings. My name is Chris, and I'm joined again by part of the reason Finland knows what AFL is. Stevo, welcome back, mate.
Yeah, cheers, mate. It's good to be back 2 weeks in a row and 2 wins in a row. So we'll be another, hopefully upbeat chat for the next hour or so.
That's it, mate. We don't need to get anyone else on. I'm going to lose Brett's number because every time he's set up to come on, we lose a game. So, Stevo is on permanently at this rate anyway. So, look, just before we get kicked off, of course, if you enjoy a podcast, etc., go to all the things, like our stuff, follow us on Facebook and Instagrams and all those things. We do fun stuff on top of this potty. It does make a big difference to us and the potty in itself and then growing it, of course. There's not enough good media out there for AFL, in particular for the Swans, so make sure you support your boys and girls over here at the Bevy. Now, getting into the score recap. Last Saturday night, our Sydney Swans defeated the Freo Dockers by 29 points with a final score of 12-4-76 to 16-9-105. So, Stevo, mate, first impressions, what did you make of it?
Yeah, well, just looking at the score like that, and I'd forgotten how close it was in terms of their scoring. Not close, opposite of close. 12. What am I talking about? 12-4. They kicked 12-4. That's amazing. That's really, really accurate goal kicking, and we kicked 16-9. So we were actually quite a bit more ahead in the scoring shots than I remembered actually. But yeah, really in terms of the game, I don't know. It felt like a bit almost like a final going into it, because I think both teams knew that if they lost, that's probably it for the season. And Freo, especially as the game went on, really started to try and fight their way back into the game, and it had that kind of mini final feeling. There was a massive crowd. There was like 40,000 plus people over at Perth Stadium, which is amazing. Like for a team that's in the bottom four and they're still getting that many people. Like credit to the Freo fans for turning up and supporting their team. But it really felt like the first of quite a few, because we managed to get through this one, and now we've got another one against the Bombers. Then we're going to have another one against the Giants, then against the Suns, and against the Crows. It's going to be a month of games like this if we keep winning. We're going to have this feeling every week. So, yeah, that was the first of hopefully quite a few more.
Yeah, no doubt. The talk about the way it felt like a final is bang on, I think. We were nervous at the pub. Everyone was freaking out. And we were just talking off air. Even though we started dominating and putting pressure on the scoreboard and we kept them away from it, it still felt like they had at any moment they could have just run back on it. And it just felt like there was no reprieve up until like maybe the last 3 minutes where we just like, okay, the game is iced now. But other than that, it definitely felt like it was a lot closer than what it was. I don't know what it was about it. Right. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was they started off really strong, right? So one of the things that they did right off the bat was the clearances, and that was where we were going to lose the game if we lost those clearances. I jumped onto another potty to do called the Purple Rain with a fellow called Duck, who runs the Freo potty over there, and we did like a pre-game potty with them, which was a lot of fun because just to get to share some information between us that you don't necessarily keep a track of the opponents all the time. And he was basically saying, I think when they've won clearances, they've never lost a game or something like that. So to see us kind of basically bend that trend pretty significantly, and we'll get into the stats in a second, was pretty pleasing. Mate, good, bad, and the stats. What did you see on your side?
One thing I'll just say before I forget, you mentioned you're on the Purple Rain, the Freo Dockers fan podcast. I listened to the episode last week when it came out, and I was so impressed with how much they knew and how much research they'd done about our team. Like the amount of detailed questions and stuff they'd gone through, going back over many, many games to learn about the Swans players was, yeah, it was huge. I was really impressed, and it was nice to listen to what other teams think about our players. We talk about them ourselves, but we've got our own perspective, right? Like our own biases and our own passions and stuff. It was really interesting to hear just how they thought about our guns and the ones that didn't worry them so much as well. But
Yeah, one of the interesting questions was he was asking about McLean and Wicks. It's like, these are names that I've heard over the last couple of years. I know they're on your starting 22 and they seem to be a staple of it, but I don't know anything about them. So we actually got to just quickly chat about their position and, you know, how we deemed them as players and whether they're hot or not. And it was actually quite interesting because you get to look at it from their angle as well. It was like, okay, just as you said, like you're looking at our players from an external source, like how much you don't look at their potential when you start looking at opposition. You look at their impact now because the game's on this weekend. So that was quite an interesting approach to looking at it.
Yeah, that's it. Like what are they going to do to us on Saturday? It's a very different way of thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, one thing I did really like about the game, and talking about the good and the bad and the stats, even though the scoreboard doesn't show it, I mean, we got ahead by about 30 odd points at one point in the first quarter after they'd kicked 6 goals in a row, the Swans. And then after that point, the margin never got back within 20 points. So the Swans on the scoreboard stayed ahead. It didn't feel like that watching it, at least for me, it didn't feel like that. Like it felt like it was much tenser and that Freo was really only a goal or two away from really getting themselves back in the game. And what I really liked was that the Swans were able to answer. Every single time Freo got to within that sort of 20, 26-ish range, the Swans were able to get another one, steady things, and get on with it. And that showed some maturity, which I think has probably been lacking. I mean, Swans have been run down a couple of times this year. We've lost, 4 times having led at three-quarter time this season. So there's certainly been a pattern of those sort of losses. And to not let this one happen, I thought was a really big step forward for the Swans.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. We got the things here. Thankfully, Noddy plugged them up here. Against Port, we were up by 14. We lost by 2. Against GWS, we were up by 12. We lost by 1. Against St Kilda, we were up by 6 and lost by 14. And against Richmond, we were up by 8 and lost by 13. So yeah, they're the 4 games, and all of those teams. So Port, that was the first game of their big run when I think they won 11 in a row or something, 10 in a row. I can't remember off the top of my head. GWS, of course, the 1 point, which was painful as hell. And then the other 2 were just a bit ordinary. So, yeah, big for us to start. It's a good time of year to start bending trends, I think. It's if you're going to do it, let's start doing the spiky part.
And what was the deal in the Geelong one? Do you remember? Were they ahead at three-quarter time in the Geelong game?
I feel that's a good question. I feel that they may have been. And we started pulling
I didn't
back.
watch that one. I couldn't see it. I was away and I didn't see the game at all. I saw the scores and my mate watched it. He said, "No, don't. It'll drive you mad." He said, "Yeah, Grant told me don't watch it. just get on with your life."
I was actually at the Pantheon in Rome while the game was going on, and I was refreshing my phone constantly to see what was happening because I wanted to know what this, as it got closer and closer and closer. And my partner actually filmed me as I was like basically the Pantheon's there, and I'm just looking at my phone, just screaming at my phone amongst all these Italians and tourists, just making a bit of a scene.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's a bit ordinary, but yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, they were in front, and then we pulled it back, but unfortunately couldn't get that last point to really take it over. But yeah, so look, a couple of things that I saw in the game were fantastic. Okay, so we were still +6 in clearances. So I was a little bit mistaken before. So we were +6 in clearances. That's massive, despite losing the hitouts by 17. So that was, if your eyes told you that Jackson had a bit of a field day with McLean. McLean, of course, is not the strongest ruck, and everyone's quite excited about what Jackson can do for the future. But McLean's job was to basically, give an option there and also follow up, be a tall out and get some good marks. And he did the job. And as it turns out, it doesn't matter about losing the hitouts by 17 because you can still win the clearances successfully anyway. So that worked out really well for us. And then the fact that we had, it was a bit of a trend setter for us. 80% disposal efficiency, and the season average is about 72. So we were +8, a pretty significant number, almost like, what's that, 12% or so. Better this time around, and at 58% efficiency going inside 50, and the season average had been 49. So that's like 20 points up. So that is pretty significant numbers. That's like 40% more, straight off the top of my head, ish, about us basically being better with the ball and being just better, cleaner users of it, and that's made a massive difference to the game in the end. It kind of felt like we had more control of it than we maybe did. That's the kind of way that I saw it, mate. I don't know about you.
Yeah, they did. They used the ball well, and they pressured really well. I mean, you talked about McLean just then, and yeah, he didn't win as many hitouts, but he's not really there to do that. There's no expectation even that he will. But his follow-up work around the stoppages is really, really strong, and I think really helped not let them get really clean takeaways and stuff out of there, because he'd go up. There was a couple of occasions where you'd see, and it's like it's a physically demanding thing to go up and even contest and win a hit out. So he goes up, he contests the hit out, and then the first thing he does when it comes down is he lays a tackle straight away, and he did that quite a few times, and that was really important, I think, like his work, but also Parker and Rowbottom and these guys around those ball ups and those boundary throw-ins, which didn't let Freo play the game that they would have maybe wanted to play, which is that clearance dominant game, which the Purple Rain guys were talking about the other week.
Yeah, exactly. And look, the top 5 players for clearances, only one Docker in there. So Sarong, Swans fan Sarong, with 10 of them, but then behind him we had Parker with 8, Rowie with 5, Gordon with 5, and Papley with 4. So nonetheless, although they got the hitouts, they've got the ruck advantage, they just didn't make a single difference to the clearances, and that's something that's pretty important for us, considering we don't really have a strong informed ruckman at the moment. So we're going to have to do what we've got to do. I think when Aaliyah was doing some of the rucking, we sometimes he wouldn't go up at all, right? And he'd just stay down and then just tackle the guy as soon as he got the ball, and then got the ball contested, and then we went on from there. So it does start to show that you don't necessarily need a dominant ruckman to have successful clearances. It helps, like if you got your Riders, your Gorns, your Grundy when he was in form, your Nick Nats, of course. But other than that, they just got to get the job done. They got to be a tall bloke and just compete, right? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, totally. And like the main things that you're looking for a ruck to do usually is you want your ruckman to win the hit out. To advantage, that's number one. If they can't do that, then you want to try and prevent the opposition ruckman from getting a nice, beautiful tap out to someone. But then its impact on the ground, like once the ball comes to ground in the contest, and then impact around the ground. And I think in those two latter ones, the impact around the ground and the impact once the ball's on the deck in the ruck contest, McLean has been doing a good job, like a really good job.
Yeah, I'm loving McLean's game. He just does whatever's asked of him. He's got that Harry Cunningham energy where you ask him to do something and he would just do that job. Like it might not be pretty, but he'll get the job done, whatever that job was. So he's becoming the bit of the coach's pet at the moment. You put him anywhere and he gets that done. So that's really fun to see, mate. Favorite moments. What did you see? Favorite moments and missed chances. Let's get stuck into that.
I'm going to claim an entire half as a favourite moment. Yeah. But it's only one person. Look, I'm a big fan of Will Hayward. I've liked him for a long time. Me and my brother have been long-time fans, especially of him, and he cops a lot, I think, because of the role that he plays. That high half forward, extra forward, never the key target. It's a really hard job to shine in, so I think he does get a bit of grief directed towards him, and it was really, really good to see him just tear it up in the first half of that game. He kicked 2 of the first 3 goals. He got the last goal of the half for the Swans. They got one back late, I think. And like Matt said in our group chat, that was when the game was won, was that first half. And Will Hayward came in with 3 really, really strong goals. And he's missed a couple of sitters. And I think that I was quite nervous for him when he went back. And he went back and the first thing I noticed when he went back to kick, I think it was the first set shot that he had, was that he went back with the drop punt straight away. Because last week he tried to do that hook around and it just went flying out into nowhere against who did we play last week? Bulldogs.
The Dogs.
Yeah. Yep. And I thought, oh man, what's going to happen? Like his confidence at that point looked shot. Like a week ago, it looked shot. I thought, what's going to happen? But he just went back there, set it himself, kicked the drop punt, and he was away. He had a great day. So his whole first half was my favourite moment, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Like he was not only on the score sheet, but also what he was doing around the ground. Like that's I think that's one thing that I've always been defending of Hayward. Like he may not be hitting the score sheet, but he's doing so much more around the ground as well. He stays busy. He runs a lot. He works very hard. He gets in the contest. He's always putting pressure on. He does all the things that you ask of him. It's just the scoreboard pressure is what you want to see from him, because at the end of the day, he is a mid-sized forward and we do expect him to freaking score. So for him to get these two, as soon as he took that mark for that first goal of his and he went back, he was at 40 out-ish or so. Yeah, everyone at the pub got nervous. We're all like, oh, bugger. Like, oh, no, Will, please. And for exactly as you said there, we're like, his confidence is shot. He even looked a bit rattled as he was going back. And then he slotted it, and we're like, okay, this is good. This is a very good start for him. Let's see where it ends up. And he ended up having an absolute tear on that first half. So, yeah, good shout out, mate. You're allowed to have an entire half of a player. That's fair. On these rules that we just made up.
Can I stick one more in then? I got one other player, and this guy, he didn't have his biggest game. It was Chad Warner. He had a pretty quiet day by his standards, really. I mean, it was his first one back from being injured, so you'd expect it to take a while. But that moment in the last quarter where they were making one of those little sort of mini runs that we were talking about, and not long afterwards, he gets the ball in the forward 50, goes back and kicks a very, very calm set shot goal. And that to me was like a sign of a much more mature than 21-year-old footballer. He just went back, took control of that moment and said, yep, I'm going to kick this goal in front of 40,000 people who are screaming murder at me. And he did it. Beautiful goal. Yeah. And they didn't really come again after they got one goal, but that was it.
That's it. He's a bit of a champion. I'm glad to see him back. Hopefully this kicks into form for both of them, I think, for both Chatty. I don't think Chatty's been out of form, but he's just been a little bit quieter, I guess. Maybe they're just paying a bit more attention to him. But yeah, we know the skills that he has. I'm going to go with probably McDonald's crumbing goal. That was beautiful. So the ball went into our 50. Amati contested well, got hands to it, hit the ground. Amati thought like he was due for a penalty because a free kick, given that his hands got slapped or so. But it hit the ground, and Logan is so freaking smooth with the ball on the ground. Like for a big fella, he's very, very, very smooth. Yeah, no, took 2 steps, bang, snapped it straight down the middle. Perfect. How can you go about it? That's another Logan McDonald goal as he slowly works his way up to our KPI of 30 goals for the season. I think he's on 22. So a pretty tidy effort from young Logan. And keep in mind, of course, that he sat out like 4 or 5 or 6 games or so. So, yeah, not bad. Not bad from the young jumbo jet that is no doubt about to take off. Any other spots for yourself, mate?
Oh, they are my 2 favourite ones, I think. I've got some more. We're going to talk about some of these players when we talk about the best players, so I'll save it till then, I think.
Cool. Easy. Well, let's get stuck straight into it. Moving into the Bob medal, which is the equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal as the Bevy of Bloods version. Hopefully that makes you very confused. Good. We give 3 to 1 points out to the best Swans player. And this week, I got some scotch from duty free from coming over from Europe, so I'm going to pass over a bottle of scotch over for 3 points. Parker, 2 points for Buddy, and 1 point for the aforementioned Hayward. So, mate, do you want to take it away with Parker?
Yeah, I think Luke Parker, I kind of feel bad for him because every time we do the votes on here, he's always like our 4th or our 5th or something, and we never seem to want to give him points in the 3-2-1, and I think this week there was no way you could not give him points because he just does the same every week. Like he's so consistent that you almost take his output for granted that he's at that level, and he's maybe not as flashy as an eye-catching kind of player either. So you tend just to, he does his grunt work and off he goes every week. But this week he was so dominant that I think he could have had the 3 and the 2 and the 1 all to himself. He was that good. He was all over it. 31 touches, 15 contested, 9 tackles, which was the best on the field, 8 clearances, 9 score involvements. Yeah. Like his game was phenomenal. It was, It's amazing that he's able to perform at this level consistently most weeks, and it takes something like this for him to get our attention, So.
It is like that. His numbers are always great, and his impact on the game is always good. And then we're just like, oh yeah, he had a game. He's like fourth or fifth, and it's like it's unfair. Like he deserves points every single week, but what are you going to do? Like he's just too damn consistent, even for his own fans. One moment I remember in the first quarter, I think it was when the ball was really contested. When they kicked their first two out of like some pretty smooth entries into the 50. Then we started contesting a bit. The pressure started being applied. It started to look like the arm wrestle started moving to our favor. And there was a contested ball on the ground, and Parker went at full pitch, threw his head on the ground, and just went at this ball and then effectively contested it. I think we ended up winning it and going forward from there. But that was like a moment when I was just like, that moment, as soon as it happened, I was like, that is a great moment. That is Parker willing the team to be like, this is what it's going to take. It's going to take your head over the ball. It's going to take you ruining yourself. And I'm not saying that necessarily that was the point of when we started kicking off, but it definitely was a captain's effort when we knew that the mids were going to be a problem. We knew that the defense in the mids were going to be all about it, and both himself and Rowie did a great job. So huge stuff from Parker with the 3 points. He gets himself a bottle of Ballantine or whatever the hell I've got in that cupboard.
Is that what you bought?
I think it was like 2 liters for like $75. Can't go
wow.
wrong. Yeah. That's solid stuff. It's not the greatest drinking stuff, to be fair, but it'll do the job. All right, mate. 2 points for Buddy. I'll take this away if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
3 goals, 1 behind, but it's just the way that he went about those goals. Also, the way that he dominated Pearce. It was pretty all over him. He kind of had his number mostly. He contested a lot of balls. Got them onto the ground, put on some good pressure, 3 tackles, 11 disposals, 2 goal assists, and 3 contested marks, which was best on ground for Buddy. If Buddy Franklin can do the rest of his career, maybe the next couple of years, which we'll talk about in a second, taking contested mark and not have to run anywhere, you never know. You could play for another 10 seasons. So let's find out where Buddy is, mate. Do you want to make any mention about Buddy for the game?
Yeah, I mean, the last since he's come back, 3 weeks or so since he's been back from his last injury spell, he's been excellent, and he's changed his game quite a bit. Like he's not the athletic freak that we've expected from him for the bulk of his career, who's going to run up the wing and then sprint back towards goal and hurdle players in the centre square. Like he's not doing that, but he's added a totally different part to his game, which is his contested marking, and he actually looks like a physical presence in the forward line now. He's been bringing balls to ground. He's taking contested marks. He's bringing other players into the game. He takes up their best defender every week. Pearce had a tough day on Franklin, and I think that in the final stage of his career, he's adding parts to his game, which is amazing, and it shows a lot of the sort of athlete that he is really in terms of his professionalism as well, that he's able to readjust even at this point.
At 36 years old, he's still playing at AFL standard, at a very good standard. Like, the man's wild. It just keeps padding up his stats as well, making sure he puts enough distance between him and the next dominant person that comes along. So, yeah, mate, he's the best in the modern time. We get to watch him, continually. All right, 1 point goes to Hayward. Now, we've spoken about Hayward a little bit, but do you want to take it away with some of his stats?
Yeah, I already gushed over him quite a bit. Me and my brother, as I said, have been the Hayward fan club for quite a while. So I'm always excited when sort of, because I used to play a bit of sort of small forward, half forward. So I'm always glad when they get a bit of accolade, So I'm always happy to see Will Hayward amongst the best. 3 goals from 11 touches, same as Buddy. He took 6 marks, made 3 tackles, and especially in that first half, like we talked about, he was the man. He was the one getting it done. He played really, really well.
Yeah, 100%. One thing that I always remember, the last time we played against Freo, that was the game where Logan actually did his leg and when Millsy came off with the calf. So it was a pretty dire day. That's also the same game that Buddy, if you remember, took that snapshot that just tried to play on and just got tackled immediately. And it was just an awful game. And that was the game where we're all like, okay, it's time to start adjusting, evaluate our expectations for this year. It was that kind of game. It was quite a dire game. Hayward was actually coming out down the course and in absolute, not hysterics, but you could see he was in tears. He'd been in tears. He must have got lit up in the ground, and he was on his way back to Swans HQ, and you could see how much it meant to him. He played badly, and he was just highly upset with it. So to see him for this game in particular be dominant, get himself a point in the Bob medal, and 3 goals, and just be as important as an integral to the win is just really big for him. And it just makes me really happy as a fan that this hard work that's been putting in is going to come through. The averages will work themselves out, you know? So he's just got to work hard and eventually come back. And hopefully this is a sign of things to come for young Haywood. Honourable mentions, mate. What have you got on your side?
There's quite a few. It was a weird game because besides Parker, who was a clear standout, and those 2 forwards who also played really strong roles, the other one I think was in that top 4 was Rowbottom. He had a really, really good game. He was very important around the contest in particular, and he's just got that energy. I think when he attacks a contest, that you can see that he's going to make an impact on the contest, whether it's with his body by making a tackle, by putting a block, a shepherd, a bump, or then with the football, because then he also gets it, and he's very good at that sort of go forward style footy as well. And I think it was a really good game from Rowbottom, and he's starting to step up into being a quite good, consistent midfielder.
Yeah, and it's getting more and more touches as it goes. So like he's got his 8 tackles, but also 22 disposals to go with it. So getting enough of the ball lately, as well as putting on the dominant effort, and he's quickly. And again, I'll say this again. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times, but at this rate, he's going to take over the most tackles in a season by a Swan at the rate that he's going currently. So big stuff from Rowbottom. I just hope that he gets there because it's been a main focus of him, and it seems to be paying off. I'm just going to quickly take Cunningham. I'm a big Cunningham fan. I love Mr. Dependable. He does the job wherever he is. And although he don't necessarily have like a number of stats to kind of work with, he took some really funky marks out there on a one-on-ones. He was moving the ball nicely. He was contesting hard. It was going harder over the ball. A couple of nice tackles along the way that seemed a bit desperate. So a bit of a shout out for Cunningham because I think that he deserves something. He's not going to really get himself in the Bob medal because just the role that he plays. But he plays such an integral part of that back line and just being a bit of a all you can do kind of a gentleman over there, old Harry. Anyone else for you?
I'm going to put Callum Mills as well while we're on New South Wales locals. He's been a bit in and out. He got injured, so he's had, I think this is about his 4th or probably 5th week back from his injury now, and he was out for some time, 4 or 6 weeks, so it's a decent amount of time to miss. And I thought this week he spent some time on a wing, which was a bit different for him, but he had a really strong impact both around the ground and then also managed to get forward and get a couple of goals. So I think that his scoreboard impact was really important for us because he's such a steady head when he does get the ball in that forward 50. He doesn't spend too much time inside the forward 50. When he's there, I feel very confident that he's going to do the right thing with the ball, whether it's to kick the goal or to square it up or get it off, doesn't matter. He's just got that calmness about the way that he is on every part of the ground. So to have that both across the wing and then forward, I thought was really nice.
Yeah, he definitely played a lot more forward this time around than he typically does. And he played on the wing from big chunks of the game I saw. So, maybe just an opportunity to get him more into the game because he's hardly been bad. He's not been bad at all. He's been decent, but he's not been lighting it up like he had been doing last year or even at the beginning of this year. So I don't know whether he's still carrying something, but yeah, it's good to see Millsy back in. 2 captain's goals, it helps a lot, I think. I'm going to quickly take Gordon watch, Errol watch. Look, you can't dominate absolutely like insane numbers every week, but pretty good week by any mortal standards. 22 disposals, 18 of them kicks. 18 of those 22 disposals as kicks.
I like that.
That's what we want to see, right? Yeah. That's what we've been talking about.
He's the best kick in the comp or one of them. You want him kicking the ball, don't you?
Yep, 100%. Look, 5 clearances, 443 metres gained. That's first for the Swans. A goal in the behind and 8 score involvements. So he can have in quotations, a quiet game and still be pretty damn dominant. So that's pretty mad by old Errol. We all know how much we love Errol. As it turns out, Super Swans fan Sandra is basically in love with him as well. So he's got himself a bit of a fan club with the girls as well. So I didn't realise that something happening. Anyone else, mate? Yeah, he's a superstar. He's going to make a lot of money. Yeah.
There was one other actually. The last one that I've got for this is Logan McDonald had a really solid game, and I think that the fears that having, Franklin and McDonald and Amati, and then, potentially also McLean when Amati's covering the ruck in the forward line is going to be dysfunctional, was shown quite nicely in this game that it can work very well. It's meant that Franklin is maybe changing his role a little bit by being more of that sort of contested marking, strong, bring the ball to ground and play, and he's done it really well. But the two of them combined for 5 goals in this game, which is a really good effort from those two big forwards. So I think McDonald's effort around the ground was also really good. He took some important marks, and God, he takes a strong mark for a 20-year-old, doesn't he, or 21-year-old?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
God, he's just got these buckets for hands, man. He's a really good kid, and I think he's only going to get better.
He's a massive competitor for what I'm seeing. Like, he really hates when he loses, and he runs into the contest at full pitch. He does nothing in halves. He's no longer tentative. The first couple of weeks, you can imagine, he's a young kid going straight into the AFL, playing next to Budster, and he's got to find a role for himself. Now he doesn't hold back. He's going all in. He's mad. I can't wait to see how his development. I'm pretty bloody excited about it. I'm pretty pumped about it.
And especially after having a pretty quiet, especially second half last week. I think he barely touched it in the second half last week against the Bulldogs. But then to go over to West Australia, where he's from, and put in an effort like that was really good to see.
Is it just me? I feel that it's standard for players to play better when they go home. I've got no stats to back this up with, but that's kind of something in the back of my head. Because Buddy he always plays well when he goes to Perth. He's now on 18 goals in 4 games. Of course, that's all padded out by that 8-goal drubbing that he put over West Coast in the first game at Perth Stadium that I got to go to. But he knocked out 8 goals for the sake of it, just for good old time's sake. Between him, Warner had that big game last season when he went back to WA. Logan this week, I don't know. This is my own theory. I'm just going to stick to it.
Yeah, that would have been back when kicking bags of goals against West Coast was quite an effort too. I mean,
yeah.
Who is it now? What was his name? Kerno from
Kerno.
He's cashed in. He's got 19 goals this year against West Coast. They've played them twice. He's got 19 goals.
He's winning the Coleman for that reason. That's just bollocks. Isn't it?
It's the only one thing that is kind of good. I mean, it sucks for everyone who doesn't play West Coast twice, but at least Tex Walker, who's up there, also gets to play West Coast a second time as well, so he gets his second chance to get a bag. Because I think Tex got 10 his first time up against West Coast, so at least that's a slight equaliser. But come on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the unfairness of the draw in a second when we talk about the Bombers. But yeah, like it's pretty ordinary. We walked away from, so getting to the post game, we walked away from this game with no injuries. That was kind of good. Rowie, it was said on the app and somewhere else, I can't remember where, that Rowie came off and was being replaced by Clarkey, and this was in the first quarter, I'm pretty sure. But that wasn't the case. Rowie came back on. I don't know what confusion was, but I don't know if he came off to get some work done and then went back out there again. But yeah, no replacements. And Amati came off for a tactical sub with Clark in the fourth quarter. So no surprises there, I guess. So that's all right. Let's look at the ladder and the implications of such. We're now coming 12th on the ladder, 8 wins, 9 losses, and the draw. Let's not talk about that. At 111%. So the percentage is actually doing us a favor. If we mark up with someone else in the same points, it's actually going to do us a big win. That's of course padded out by the 170 something win over West Coast that helped us significantly in that spot. And we've got ourselves a few games heading out into finals. Finals are still on the cards. That's the positive thing. We've got Essendon away, GWS away, the Swans at home, Adelaide in Adelaide, and then Melbourne at home. So, Stevo, do you want to make a mention of any of those games, I guess, or a general state of the run home?
I think the two big ones, just looking at the ladder, and like you said, there's not much between 5th spot and the Swans. There's 6 points gap between 5th spot and the Swans in 12th. There are 2 teams that we're going to play in the next 5 weeks that are in that block of teams that we're fighting with for spots, which is the Giants and Essendon. So beating both of those 2 teams is going to take us a long way. I think that we need to win 4 out of 5. We've got, besides the Giants and Essendon, we've also then got Gold Coast, Adelaide, in Adelaide, and then finish off with Melbourne at the SCG. I think that I've gone through and looked at the different combinations because a lot of those teams in that block also play each other. So I think 4 out of 5 gets us over the line. It's just a case of winning those games. So I think if the Swans keep winning, then finals is a real thing. But if we drop 1, then we're probably relying on having to beat Melbourne in the last match, which could be a tough gig.
Yeah, Melbourne's no joke. They're a pretty damn good team. It looks like they're kind of coming up to sort themselves out now. On that point of the teams that we're playing, like we're playing the Bombers next. So the Bombers down in Marvel, I think. MCG, I should know this.
Yeah, it's in Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stadium that is always being built. It feels like it's never finished. It's always is being built. There's always scaffolding and gaff tape hanging around for some fucking reason around the seats that I'm sitting at anyway. So they're up. Look, Bombers, as you said, they're coming 11th. We're coming 12th. This is a battle that we must win. We have to win this game. The Bombers have a bit of an easier run out. So after they play us, they also play then West Coast for the second time of the season. And then they play North, who, of course, are not the greatest. Both of those at Marvel Stadium, so effectively somewhat at home. And then followed by the Giants, which would be a must-win game for them, and Collingwood, who we know is number 1 and taken it with a bit of a tear. So the Bombers have got like a bit of an easier run. But this game is in particular, both teams must win in order to get a chance at finals. There's no doubt about it. That's just what it is. So let's get stuck into it. We've got no injuries that we've listed anyway, none to the team that we currently have. Stevo, would we make any changes to the team that you see for the game against the Bombers?
I actually think that the 23 that played against Fremantle, unless Milliken is fit, and he's listed as like a 3 to 4 week hamstring, so who knows if he actually plays again this year. That really, I think this is the 23 that is the best 23 for the rest of the year of the players who are fit. We've got guys who are not able to play. The only other ones who you'd think maybe would get a look in would be someone like Roberts or Corey Warner. They're the only ones who have really played. Hickey doesn't look like getting a game. It looks like they're quite happy. At least 2 weeks in a row they've gone with the McLean-Amati ruck combo, and it's worked fine against a dominant ruckman on top of that. So yeah, I think that this 23 is probably close to it.
What about if Laddams comes back? Do you think that Laddams has a spot, or at least an opportunity to take his spot back?
He'd probably have to play a bit of VFL first, wouldn't he? He's played, or has he been playing VFL already? Where's he up? They had a bye, didn't they, last week? Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
Because he came back for one game already in the VFL, wasn't it? Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so I think
he completely imagining that. Maybe
I can't. I think that I don't think he. In my mind, I don't think he's played a VFL game yet since he's been back. But that's just my mind. My mind's not. It's got holes in it.
Yeah, well, so do I. So maybe. So for everyone who's not sure, we're not sure either. No one knows if Laddam. I'm sure
no one knows, and we're not going to. We're not going to find out either. So.
Yeah. So, but either way, he's going to have to play a bit of footy before he's ready to play seniors, and then fight his way into a quite settled team, which hopefully is still winning. That's all against him.
It's going to be tough for him to. Yeah, it's going to be tough to come back in who he's going to be need to take over is either going to be McLean or Amati. You'd imagine, or touch wood, injuries. So, I agree with you. I don't see any changes being made. Probably, I'd like to see what else we do with the emergency. So I know we put Clarkey on there because Clarkey can do a bit of everything. He can run all day. He doesn't get tired. But I'd like to see what we would do. I mean, I was a big fan of Matty Roberts before he took off. He was starting to show real signs. He had VFL energy all over. He seemed quite mature considering he'd only been playing for this season. But of course, he'd need to see some games in the VFL before he came back as well. So we're basically let's be honest here. We're in the same spot as we were at the beginning of the season. The only difference is we got less injuries to the top 23 or so, right? I mean, I'm including a couple of players that kind of go in emergency. So we're still at the problem where we don't have the depth. We lose another backman, and then we're having to call up Francis or Gould. We'll go back. We'll lose a forward. Then we basically just plug in someone like an Amati or a Clark or something. So we don't really have that depth to go with it. We're in the same position. No difference. The only difference is we've got to stay strong. We've got to stay fit, basically. Danger players. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and like literally every week from now is an elimination final. Like, this isn't the time of the year to be trying to get a couple of games into young guys or whatever just because you want them to play a few matches. Like, this is, I think, when you want your best 23 players every week if you can get them.
Yeah, exactly. There's no time. There's no wiggle room for any creativity at the moment. I think we just got to get on with it.
And looking at this, like, I think the Swans can even be. I was just looking at the fixture just now. Based on, because all these other teams ahead of us play other teams. So Carlton is ahead of us. They play Collingwood this week. Richmond is ahead of us. They play Melbourne this week. If we can beat Essendon, and then the Bulldogs and the Giants play each other, they're on the same points. One of them has to lose. We're still half a point behind, but we can be tapping on the edge of the 8 already by the end of this round if results go as expected and we manage to get a win. So there's a lot on the line. You really want to be putting your absolute guns out there.
I'm loving the AFL the last few years. They're like it's an absolute mash up all the way into the finals. And let's look at the Bombers. Like they'll have themselves a close loss to Port Adelaide by 4 points. I mean, that's pretty tidy, right? But then they beat Carlton by 34 points. But then the following week they would 2 weeks later they get absolutely lit up by the Cats by 77, and then lit up by the Bulldogs by 41. So like, it's a season where you cannot drop standards. You have to turn up. Every single team can beat every single team except West Coast. Everyone else has a chance to get at you. Let's look at North. The only reason we won against North is because they can't count past 75.
That was bad.
That was bad. That was a bad game for us, but we got the win and we needed it. St Kilda almost got done by North as well. So and Hawthorn played a pretty good game as well. I was watching that.
Oh, Richmond, they should have won. Richmond kicked.
They should have won
6 goals, I think, or 5 goals, whatever they were, and won by a point or 2 points or something.
That would have gone a long way for us as well. We'd be sitting at 11. So would
have been nice.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot in this season basically to work with, and every team can beat everyone except for West Coast. It's an interesting season.
And they've got North this weekend. It's the North Melbourne West Coast. So yeah, let's see how that goes.
Is it this the kind of game where do they bother televising it? Like, do they send the crew? Like, what's the point?
Foxtel don't do that anyway. If it's in Perth, Foxtel, I think, are they still not sending a live commentary crew to non-Victorian games? Foxtel, I'm not sure if that's still the case, but it was for quite a while. It started with the COVID period and then continued. And as far as I know, they're still commentating non-Victorian games from the studio, and they've just got like a live boundary rider.
That's pretty poor. I mean, your job is to commentate and support the media around a live game that everyone's excited about watching, and you're sitting in there in the comfort of home.
I might be wrong, but
but it's happening. Like, I know what's happening. So it's dumb. I look forward to not watching that game. That should be good.
I can't wait for it. It's going to be exciting.
Hang on, what time is it? I want to know this now. Let's have a look. I want to make sure I'm busy. Hang on.
Make sure you're busy.
I don't want to. Oh, great! It's at 4:40 on Sunday. Damn, I should be at home. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna need to do something. Get my eyebrows done or something. I'm gonna have to work this out. There's no way I'm watching that. I don't want to be tempted.
Go and see Barbie again for the 3rd time.
Hey, Barbie's a really good movie.
I'm going
really,
tonight.
really good.
I'm not kidding. I'm going. Later this evening. That's why we had to do this in the afternoon. I'm going to get my ticket sorted. I'm pumped.
Yeah, Barbie's great. I'm seeing it tomorrow with Mum because she only gave birth to 2 boys, and So she needs to see it with someone. So I'm going to take my mum. So I'm seeing it for the second time, but it's a damn good movie. I recommend it. I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. I'll get to that next.
No, neither yet. That's next on my list as well. It's like
yeah, Thursdays for Oppenheimer.
the blockbusters of the summer is North Melbourne versus West Coast, Barbie, and Oppenheimer, and they're the three must-watch
Must-watch things this weekend.
Yeah,
that's right. Boom, boom.
It's your weekend.
You thought opening season had finished. Nah. We got North and West Coast playing each other. Can't wait.
Okay.
All right, let's get back away from talking about those messes. All right, key matchups, danger players, and how do we get the W? I haven't watched too many Bombers games. I don't think. I think I've maybe watched one. Do you have any idea of the danger players, how they're going? What's happening?
The one of their players, I mean, they've got a lot of really good midfielders. They've got a lot of good right half backs. But the one of their players that always scares me is Jake Stringer, because he's the sort of guy. He's a bit like he's like almost a Jordan De Goey, but not as much of a runner. He's like more of a forward. Although he can play in the midfield also and be a very effective stringer. But he's one of those guys that whenever I'm watching, I'm just afraid that he only needs 3 touches to tear us apart. And that's why Stringer is always one that it was the same when he was playing at the Dogs before. You just worry that when that ball comes inside of 50, especially if he's isolated, if he's got a one-on-one and a bit of space around him, I'm just terrified of what he's going to do. So he's my number one, actually. I mean, the other ones are good, like all of these other guys, like your McGraths and Merritts and Parrish and these sort of ones. But Stringer terrifies me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think the other day, Kane Corns called him fat, so I don't yeah, Corns every now and then when he's got nothing to talk about just calls Jake Stringer fat because he wants to. So I don't know whether he's going to respond to that. So yeah, it's bad timing, Kane, because he might come out and absolutely tear it up just to show Kane up. So yeah, you're right. He's explosive, and he's a concern. The other ones, of course, in the midfield, like you said, Merritt, Parrish. They're pretty tidy guys. So you gotta control them. Do we have an idea? How do we get the W? What's the plan? What do you see?
I think keep doing what they've done for 2 weeks. They've had 2 really, really good weeks, and that's pretty much the first time that I've been able to say this, besides the first 2 rounds when we had big wins against, was it Hawthorn and
Gold Coast?
Yeah, that's the last time I can remember thinking that 2 weeks in a row the Swans have put in 2 quite convincing performances and come away with strong wins. And that formula is working, and it's based on, I think, a lot of getting back to basics, but also thinking about their strengths. And because the Swans bring the ball out of halfback so well, and I think they've been a bit more brave and taking on a few of those dangerous kicks to split the play up rather than getting drawn into kicking down the line, because that's what the opposition wants. They want to kick long down the line to a contest, and the Swans, they've kind of been back to their take the game on, ping the ball out of halfback, and if we can keep doing that and not get into a shootout against the Bombers, that's the other risk. Is I don't want to play them in a game where it's 110 to 104, because we probably lose, or at least maybe lose. We have a good chance of losing. I'd much rather fight them hard in the stoppages like we did against Fremantle, and then tip them apart and rip them up like we did against the Dogs, and win a game 80 to 60 or something. I don't know.
Yep. No, I see that. I think the high pressure, big contested, tough around the ball. That's been the wins that we've had. Have been quite good, like convincing wins. Like Carlton was an example of that when we play that way, and particularly Heaney. I remember doing that. Like as you mentioned, the last 2 weeks have been of similar note, with a lot of good pressure and just being strong around and making sure every contest is a win. That seems like it's the style of game that we want to play. Like I said, I think last week it's kind of felt like wet football in the dry, that kind of mentality where like every contest, every ball on the ground is worth it. It's worth its weight in gold. And yeah, we've got the young youth and the fit kids to probably chase it down. So that's probably where we need to be. I've got a note here as well. Langford's got 35 goals, but other than that, they've got a number of players between 10 and 20. So Martin, Coldwell, Perkins, Stringer, Draper, Menzies, Wiedemann, Gelfie, Wright. So they've got a lot of players that can score and have proven to score. So it's going to take a bit of if they do go up forward, it looks like they've got many, many options to get at it. So we've got to be right on top of the game and a bit more defensive in that way. I get scared when the Swans play defensive. I feel that we're on the back. When we go back foot, it seems to go against us. I've seen too many games in the last couple of years, probably 2 years in particular, that we've done that and just slowly let the game wash over us. So, yeah, I just want to see like a strong effort again and just keep the foot on the throat, basically.
Yeah, they'll be fired up. I mean, like we talk about how this is an elimination final effectively for the Swans. It is for them too. Like the consequences for their season if they lose in front of their home ground or their home crowd on their home ground is the same as what it is if we go down there and lose. And that's that finals is probably not going to happen unless you really get a run on. At least, like you said, they've got a couple of games against West Coast and North, but if they lose this one, then they've still got to win probably, both of their final 2 games, including one against Collingwood at the MCG. So their season is just as delicately balanced, and they're going to come out firing up. They've been ordinary for the last few weeks. They haven't had a great month or so, but they're capable of playing good football. And just like last week against Freo, if we expect that we can just run over them, then, probably won't.
Yeah. And the Scott brother, the other Scott brother, not the premiership one, the other one, he's going to be really pushing them hard. Like he's that kind of driver where he used that emotion to get them through. Like you've been playing shit, you're going to need to get yourselves up. So, they might turn up we just have to. We don't have really much of a choice there. It's going to be Millsy's 150th. That's pretty good. It kind of feels like Millsy's already played 150 though, in my mind. Like in my mind, he's at 250.
It felt that after his first 2 seasons, it felt like he was already a 100-game player, didn't the way that he goes about it. Yeah, he's got a very level head and just has been a leader of the club since he was quite young, really.
Yeah, and he's like, so you're always concerned with the captains. So some captains, it just doesn't fit them. But it seems like with Millsy, it's fit perfectly. And 150 games, the captain of the team, getting it done perfectly. Just the guy is an absolute gem. So, yeah, love it. Love to see Millsy getting at it. 150, hopefully the team gets around him.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like he is the captain. I mean, I know they've got 3 captains. It's him and is it Parker and Rampy? Is Rampy the third one? I'm not actually not even sure. Yeah, but I still feel like Mills is the captain because you know how there's that thing where, okay, we have multiple captains, but this guy is the captain. I feel like Mills is the captain somehow, and that's no disrespect to those other 2 players. It just Mills seems like a captain,
Yeah, he just has that cool, calm energy that goes with it. That's the gentleman right there. Local Sydney boy, get around it. Okay. One thing to note, Buddy news, mate. Do you want to take this?
This popped up today. I flicked on AFL 360 this morning here, like Tuesday night Australia time. Morning finish time. I flicked on AFL 360. That's like it's the Fox Footy panel show that's got Jared Wheatley and Mark Robinson, the Herald Sun journalist, on it, and then a bunch of players and coaches that they interview and whatever. But Mark Robinson, who's the main writer, like the main football writer at the Herald Sun, which is the big, like the Daily Telegraph equivalent in Melbourne, for those from New South Wales, run by the same people, but their football coverage is like that, and The Age is the 2 main papers that cover football, like AFL in Melbourne. And Mark Robinson, their main football writer, who's also the other co-host of this panel show, had put out an article today saying that Buddy Franklin might go around again, that he's heard rumours from people and sources. He didn't name anyone, he didn't give any details, but he's just heard that Franklin is reconsidering whether not he calls it quits at the end of this year. And that's all we have at the moment. I didn't read the article because it's behind a Herald Sun, like you got to pay for the subscription thing. Yeah, so I couldn't read the article, but just from what he was saying on the show, and he tends to only break stuff if he thinks it's got at least some weight behind it. Interesting. What do you think about that if Buddy went around again?
Yeah, like it's one of those, we said at the beginning of the year in the review that we wanted to see less of Buddy because we wanted to start blooding up these other kids. And we've managed to be able to do a bit of both. Buddy's still there, but also blooding these kids, getting more time into Logan, doing his thing. Buddy is still competitive. He's still very good. His stats are still good. He's had plenty of time, games off this season, and he's still up there in most stats for the high up forward. So I don't know what to say other than it sounds and feels like he's still needed at the Swans. if he was going to retire, it's retired. See you later. Thanks, buddy. All the best. All the cheers and stuff. We'll never see him again until he gets called back for like a 10-year reunion or something. But in the meantime, if he wants to go around again, I would be inclined to make sure we pick him up. I don't want to pay the overs. Definitely got to give him a big discount. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to see him again. What about you?
I wonder, because like in mid-season, I remember looking at him playing and thinking he looked shot and that he was just going to limp out for the season. And now he's come back from a short injury layoff where he's now played 3 really good games in a row. And the critic in me is asking myself, are we just getting overexcited because of 3 strong games? Or is there more? Like, could he produce that level consistently for an entire another season? Because there's one thing to sort of see the end of the season and come home with a wet sail. But then to go through the grind of another preseason and then another, 20 plus weeks of AFL. I mean, if you think you could get 12 to 15 games out of him, that's probably a good return given where he's got to be at his age. He's 36? He'll be 37, I think, early next year even. I think he's born in January. So yeah, so he will have hit his birthday already. He'll be 37. Can he do it? Is he physically? Mentally is different. Every athlete, amateur, professional, doesn't matter, is the last person often to be aware of when they should stop.
Yeah, they're not the best people to tell them when they shouldn't. Yeah.
Like it's like even in a game, like when you can see that your best midfielder's done his shoulder and he just can't do his job, he can't tackle, he can't do anything, but he doesn't want to come off the field. And is this a bit of that it's just no one's ready to let go? Fans, players, Franklin himself, is it that? And at what point would it need to be decided is the other thing, because if he's going to quit this year, there's only 2 more Sydney games left. I think people are going to know and be able to go along and sort of say goodbye. So at what point would the call need to be made?
Yeah, like I don't know if he when he announced that he was going to go around another year and take that 1-year deal or whatever, I kind of felt that he wasn't convinced. He never in that conversation did he ever say, oh yeah, this is my last turnaround. He just said, oh yeah, it wasn't necessarily whether I wanted to play for the Swans. It was whether I wanted to go around again. So I kind of feel that it's on his terms, that he can just be like, you know what, I do want to go again. And the Swans are sitting there with like $500,000 in their pocket to go, burning a hole and go, yeah, go on then. So yeah, you're probably right. Like whether he needs to be the one to call the shots. But while he's still performing, it's kind of hard not to suggest that he can't keep going. His body's somewhat holding up, and they're managing him. And maybe next year is like legitimate, like goodbye buddy year, where he just goes around to all the stadiums and does the big whole, runs through a banner of a picture of himself
for 22 weeks.
For 22 weeks straight, signs balls that are in his face on it and stuff that he would obviously never do. I don't know.
The John Farnham farewell forever tour. He just keeps on clicking, doesn't he? Because of the way that I look at it, like from a player point of view, if you could be quite sure, or even reasonably sure, that next year you could get 12 to 15 or so, even 10 to 15 games out of Buddy, which are of equivalent quality of what he has produced in the past month, then I would say absolutely sign the guy up, no problem at all. But then we don't know that. Like he knows that better than anyone. The people at the club know that, and this story hasn't come from the club, or we don't know actually. It's come from an anonymous source that's been put on the internet by a tabloid journalist. I mean, that's the reality of it. But part of
it's
me
an
wants to see him play again.
Point, yeah.
I'd love to see him do another season. And our young guys aren't such yet that I don't think that, and we've seen that in the last couple of weeks too, is that him being there, playing the role he's playing, isn't having a negative impact on the development of McDonald in particular, who's like the heir apparent. So that fear is maybe not what it could have been earlier in the year when it was that, all of the time the balls are getting directed through him, and it made the Swans forward lines, a lot of people were calling it quite one-dimensional. That wasn't the case at all against Fremantle in particular.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I guess it comes down to his role. If he's willing to play the role, and it looks like anyway that it's there, then yeah, a good player is always needed at any club, doesn't matter where it is. So if it's between him and someone else to play that role, is he better than that other player? I'd suggest yeah. If he's healthy, he is. So yeah, why not? Really, why not? If you try to look at this without trying to be quite objective, then age is just a number. We're very obsessed with numbers when it comes to age, when it comes to sport. And at the end of the day, we just need someone to put up the statistical numbers and put their body out there on the line and just see how that goes. So we'll find out soon enough.
And we're not dealing with that's the last thing. Sorry, before I
no, please
interrupt you. The last thing with him too, I think. When it comes to Franklin and age, like we're not dealing with an ordinary athlete. This is a guy who, as soon as he came into the underage system for West Australia years ago, he was considered to be exceptional in so many categories. And so I think that when it gets to being 36, 37, 38, he is still exceptional and an exceptional player of that age. Why can't they keep going if their body's letting them?
Yep, 100%. If you're going to keep performing, then just keep turning up. You'll keep your name will still be on the magnet. Basically, it'll just keep happening. Okay, well, we're going to go to one last thing, just a quick one. Hello to the Swans HQ bar. Adrian and Philippa running the bar behind there, doing a great job. They remember your order before you even go up there. Lovely. The two of them working super hard, looking after us Swans fans post and pre-game. So if you are at Swans HQ, go over to the bar, say Adrian and Philippa. The bevy says hello, and hopefully you won't get any free drinks out of it. We've not organised that, but you will get a smile from them. I promise you that. So that's what that is.
Can I ask? Because I haven't been to a game since last season. So is this a new bar which is connected to is it in the SCG or is it somewhere else? Or?
Oh, Stevo, let me take you through this. I'm very excited about it. I love it. It's such a good spot. So Hall of Industries is between the SCG. There's the SCG, a bit of Fox Studio. Then there's the Hordern Pavilion, and then the Hall of Industries. So it's only like a short walk, a couple hundred meters away. Inside there is a bar, is a what do you call it? Souvenir shop, like a Swans based shop. It's got inside that. It's also got not a full size. It's got a replica AFL pitch inside the ground. It's got.
This is where they train. Is this the Swans training facility?
Exactly,
and attached to that. No way.
Yes,
awesome.
Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So after the game, we go there straight after, and then they typically have a player or a coach or some part of media. They had like Tom Harley, they had a Marty last time, and they go out there and just have a quick interview for a couple of minutes and just ask some questions. And of course, you can grab a beer and you can sit there and have a sit from drinks. And if you stay long enough, like we have, the players start coming in after the game and they start going to the locker rooms and get in the cars and take off. So you get to yell nice things at your favorite players as well from the other side. We're like animals. They have they have like a cage between the two of us. We're not allowed to touch them.
So they should.
Yeah, as they should. But yeah, it's good fun. It's amazing. So yeah, you got to get out there, mate. Next time you're in Australia, we'll make sure we make an effort.
I'll have to plan my next trip. I'm coming over for Christmas, but there's no. How stupid is this? I'm coming over. I get there like 2 weeks after the women's season finishes. I'm spewing. Well, because they only announced it like last week, and I booked the trip months ago because it costs so much money to fly to Australia from here. So I'm missing all the footy this year. So next year I'll have to plan my travels better.
Yeah. Sounds like you got some work to do.
Yep.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. On behalf of a bevy of bloods, thank you to everyone listening in. Make sure to follow us on wherever you get your fantastic Swannies news. For this week, if you're in Sydney, get out to a pub. We'll be at the Tudor in Redfern, a lovely, lovely place. Lots of good Swans fans. Ask for Bruce. He's a lovely guy. Until then, up the bloods. And can you Swannies? That was bad.